From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. Glad to be with you here across the Sunshine State and Radioland and around the world on podcasts and video streams, wherever those are sold or distributed. We're happy to have this time with you to unpack the news, to dissect culture, to explore science and innovation. Hey, there are lots of natural secrets in the world that we can explore in the world of science. Don't think that we're at the end of discovery. The discoveries are just at the beginning stage. I think we've got so much left to do, so much things that we can accomplish if we just stop the blame games of politics. We've got to stop relying on our old habit of scapegoating people to find meaning. We find meaning. You know, how many folks wake up every day and they just think, you know, what did Donald Trump do today so I can kick him and signal my disinterest in this president and shame him? You know, now the big story is that Nancy Pelosi said he's morbidly obese, and then Trump responds by saying, you know, this woman has mental issues. And you just think about this. All politics is scapegoating. It's blame games. It's trying to create a culture or a community based around mutual hatred of a common enemy. And that's just not the way we're going to solve problems in society. That's not how things are going to work. And we just have to decide together as neighbors that we've had enough of it, that we're not going to put up with that. You know, you can have a place for politics, but we've got to unleash our freedom again and fight for it with articulation and conviction and courage, and never ever slink back into apathy and complacency as our freedoms are destroyed and as we destroy the integrity of our culture through debasement and through the vulgarity of policing our every action and attacking and shaming people who don't think like us. That just has no place. And it certainly has no place in a civilized society. And I think our kids and our grandkids are going to look back at the choices we make now and decide whether we should be judged as people who put away our bad behaviors and got to work and became the adults we were supposed to be, or whether we shrink back and say, you know, my goodness, I can't believe they left us with such a mess. So it's up to us. That's our choice about what we're going to leave for them. And so joining me is someone that I've had on the program before. He's joining me from Nampa, Idaho. So Tampa, Florida, welcome to Nampa, Idaho. We have Marine veteran Ben Adams. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing fantastic, David. Thanks for having me on the show.
And it's great to hear from you again. Now, we've had you on before, but since we've had you on, I think you've been up to something else lately. What you been up to over there in Idaho?
Oh, well, a lot. You know, we have been experiencing the same COVID responses and backlash across the board, but you know, I am actually running for state representative in my district to try and have give liberty a louder voice.
Well, very good. And tell me a little bit about the race and when the election day is for anyone that's listening to us from Idaho. Want them to be aware of what you got going on over there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am. So first of all, today is the last day to request your ballot here in Idaho. Idaho is having a historical election. It's the first all-absentee election and hopefully the last, if I have anything to do with it. And then June 2nd is the last day that ballots can be turned in, and they'll be counted on June 2nd. And the announcement for what the results will be in June 2nd. But what I'm running on is a traditional values, traditional American values. I'm staunch pro-Second Amendment, pro-life. I believe in liberty and limited government, in lower taxes. And ironically, I am the only candidate in my race to sign the Taxpayer Protection Pledge, which states that I will oppose and vote against any attempts to raise people's taxes here in Idaho. And I'm very proud of that.
So, you are a veteran of the Afghanistan war, and now this is your first run in politics. What is something that you've learned having, jumped into the world of politics before you were in the world of the military? Maybe there's something you've learned that you did not expect, or something that you thought about politics, but then when you got into it, you realized, whoa, that's different than I thought it was. Anything like that?
Not too crazy. People are people, no matter what realm you're in. The one thing I would say that I've found differently is now that I'm a politician, people feel comfortable telling me whatever's on their mind. While when I was Joe Blow, the civilian, they might hold back, or they might not. But now that I have an R behind my name, now they have something to cast at. So I would say the entering into the political realm has been the most interesting difference in how people will talk to you with a completely different expectation than if you were just sitting on your front porch talking.
So it's almost like when you're a politician, some people treat you like a priest, huh? They're going to confess all their grievances with you, huh?
Yeah, well, they're not confessing. They're bringing light to issues that are important to them. And the approach that I've taken, for better or for worse, is I'd rather listen to the concerns they have, and even if I can't do anything about it, at least I know what the concerns are, and I'm aware of that. I think that's important in representative government. And so I've my listening abilities have been turned all the way up over the last several months.
And one of the things that I've talked to you about a lot, and I want to reiterate that with you, is your unique experience in the front lines of our wars in the Middle East. Now, is there anything that someone can do? You're running for state legislature in Idaho. Is there anything that can be done at the legislative level or the state level that might be able to help take on the forever wars, these endless interventions that are not declared with a proper constitutional declaration by Congress, but rather these wars go on and on and on? I mean, Afghanistan, which you served in, here it is 2020, and we went in there, what is that, 18 years now?
No, we went in, are you talking about into Afghanistan?
Is that 19 years now?
So we went into Afghanistan in the fall of 2001.
Wow.
I believe it was November. So we're coming up on the 20-year mark.
Wow.
Awful quick. And what I would say is, as far as our wars that we're involved in, as a state legislator, I don't have legislatures don't have any ability to directly influence where our U.S. troops are deployed. However, the National Guard, it's a different story. And there are some steps that are being taken in several different states to enact Defend the Guard legislation, which would limit the use of National Guard troops on overseas combat deployments. Here in Idaho, we actually just sent off 400 or so service members with the Idaho Air National, with a fighter wing, in support of combat operations in Southwest Asia. So for the average person, they think Southwest Asia, oh, that's somewhere, where vague, right? It's Southwest Asia in the military terms is almost unilaterally Afghanistan. So that's something to take into effect. The media is not using the word Afghanistan in coordination with the deployment is no longer as popular as it used to be. And I have a couple polls, actually. Concerned Veterans for America did a poll where 71% of veterans and active duty think we should be completely out of Afghanistan. There was another poll done about the same time, 70% of Americans support a complete withdrawal of Afghanistan. And in the news in the last couple of weeks, we've heard that President Trump has been badgering the Pentagon about getting our guys out of Afghanistan under the justification that the likelihood of COVID-19 becoming a serious issue in that country, since they do not have a high hygiene standard. That's the argument that was at least discussed in the news. But I do believe there is a lot of people are waking up to the concept of, okay, well, how long is long enough, and what are we trying to accomplish there? And hopefully, when I'm elected to the legislature, I will be able to promote those ideals at the state legislature as well, to make sure that we are defending our National Guard from deployments that do not have a successful mission goal or end game.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people on any political affiliation would probably agree with when you ask them, especially one-on-one. And I think it's something that could be a rare point of partisan or bipartisan or transpartisan cooperation. It's something we need to continue to explore. I think criminal justice reform is another issue that transcends parties and brings people together. Let's continue with Ben Adams, a Marine veteran of the Afghanistan War and someone who's running for state office in Idaho. We'll continue in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania & Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania & Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Are you thinking of selling your home? It's a big decision. So is your realtor. Kimberly Clark of Century 21 Coast to Coast is the People's Choice Realtor for Pinellas. Kimberly, a multi-million-dollar producer, is so confident she'll sell your home for top dollar that you're welcome to cancel your listing at any time. That's big. List with Kimberly and know that your most valuable asset will get the attention and expertise it deserves. Click Kimberly Clark at PinellasHomesForSale.com or call her at 727-279-5739. That's 727-279-5739.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified optometric physician and certified nutritional specialist, host of popular talk show Ask the Doctor. I've researched and developed an amazing new omega-3 product that you'll see incredible results with. It's called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max. I had one of the top Norwegian omega-3 research teams in conjunction with myself and Fortify Vitamins aid in the development of this advanced omega-3. This product is the most potent and purest triglyceride form omega-3 in the United States today. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being, especially in this unprecedented, challenging time. I am giving a 25% discount with promo code RADIO during this viral pandemic. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE. Remember the EYE in Fortify. That's fortify.com. Enter the promo code RADIO to receive the 25% discount.
Homeowners, do you have trees that are dangerously close to your home that can do a lot of damage?
Oops.
Well, ABC 1-2 Tree offers experienced, fully insured professionals at honest, affordable prices. Their equipment is state-of-the-art. They use the safest practices in the industry. They have 5-star Google reviews. ABC 1-2 Tree only employs certified arborists. Call them at 727-522-8733. That's 727-522-8733. Or go to abc12tree.com.
Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm David Gornoski, your host, and we're speaking with our friend, our Marine veteran friend, Ben Adams from Idaho. He's running for state legislature over there, and he's running on a constitutional liberty platform, pro-family, pro-life, all good things, Ben. Ben, but I wanted to focus in, on this program, we look a lot about foreign policy, and so, I know that you have been an ally of the Bring Our Troops Home organization, which is a veteran-led group. I think it's a really great organization with Dan McKnight and some other fine fighters for freedom. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about what folks need to know about what's going on over there. I mean, it's again, we know there's general bipartisan support to, as you said with the polls, to come out of Afghanistan, and the veterans are very much in support of that. 70% or so want us out of there. But why can't we just get out? I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, President Trump has said we need to get out. We need to get out, and he's telling the Pentagon, "Hey, I told you to get out." I thought we had a president here. Why are presidents not able to get our troops out?
All right, that's a loaded question. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to address there is Afghanistan and why it's so hard to get out from a geographic perspective. So Afghanistan is a landlocked country. We have spent the last 19 and a half years putting stuff in, whether that's troops or equipment or materials, or taxpayer dollars. But historically, Afghanistan has always been a hard country to get out of. If you look at Alexander the Great, he drove through Afghanistan. He marched through Afghanistan on his way to India, and they used very similar methods to pick apart his army as they were going through, guerrilla warfare tactics and such. And he got to India. He was defeated by India, and when he turned around, he had two choices of how to get back to Greece. He could either go back through Afghanistan, or he could build an entire fleet of ships for his entire army and sail all the way around. And he picked the ships. So some thought there. In terms of the president and why he can't unilaterally pull us out, as I'm sure you are aware, the different departments that have been heavily involved in every foreign policy issue that we've dealt with over the last 100 years, really, they're still there, and they're still very entrenched. And ultimately, it usually comes down to monetary incentive, and you're also talking about a national security council that is very concerned that if we pull out of Afghanistan, that it will dilute into longer can control. But I would make the argument that we're not controlling it right now. We're just playing Big Brother between two warring ideologies.
What are those two warring ideologies that people need to know?
So you have the Taliban, which are traditionally Pashtun, from the Pashtun tribes, and they're in the southern part of the country and northern part of Pakistan, bordering Afghanistan. And then you have the Tajik tribes, which are in the northern and eastern side of the country more. And the Tajik tribes are a little bit more moderate than the Taliban. The Taliban ideology is much more traditional. One of their pillars of faith is that they do not change and they repel invaders. So that's a never-ending pillar that stays in their ideology.
Is that like their slogan? We do not change and we repel invaders.
Sort of. It's part of their ideology that is taught in the madrasas there, and which are their schools. They're religious-themed schools. Those are the areas of education similar to any nation. Modern nations several hundred years ago, all of the education was religious education, and they're still in that phase. The Tajik tribes were more than happy to allow the U.S. to come in because we brought a lot of validity to their tribes that they did not have previously. Unfortunately, the Tajik tribes are not Americans and they're not Western. And so we still have the same social and ideological rifts with them as we do with the Taliban, just not to the same extent.
Was there a lesson you learned about our attempts to nation build Afghanistan that helps inform how you can work in Idaho in the state legislature? Lessons learned about things we attempted to do there that maybe you can bring for people at home? Well,
one thing that I will say, and this is, you always have to be hesitant when you say something potentially complimentary of your enemy. The Taliban does not, if they don't want it, then they will do anything to resist, if you will. And we live in an interesting time in America and in Idaho, specifically. We are dealing with a very low COVID-19 death rate and infection rate, and we are seeing the economic impact of staying closed. Thankfully, our governor has moved forward to the next stage of reopening, but there's still a lot of resistance to that. I don't think you have to force people to be careful and be safe. I don't think that's the government's job. It was Benjamin Franklin that said, those who would sacrifice liberty for safety deserve neither. And that is eternally true, especially given the government approach to mandating essentially a form of martial law, economic martial law. And in many states, it's significantly worse than Idaho. Even our governor, who is considered a very right now, some people are painting him as the scapegoat, but the reality is he's even fairly liberty-minded compared to a lot of governors around the country, as we've seen over the last month or two.
Ben Adams, it's a pleasure talking to you. Best of luck in what you're doing, fighting for freedom. Thank you for speaking out for peace as a veteran. And we want everybody to go to your website, benadamsforidaho.com. That's benadamsforidaho.com.
Special report, coronavirus update. There are more than 1.5 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the U.S. President Trump says states are getting up and running.
Look at the states that are opening up. They're busy, and their numbers, interestingly, going down. So they're opening up. You look at Florida and Georgia in particular, their numbers are going down. So we're very confident that we're going to have a tremendous turnaround.
New York will allow gatherings of up to 10 people for Memorial Day weekend ceremonies. Governor Andrew Cuomo says all the precautions the state has been taking have helped.
And if we didn't do what we did, that number of 100 per day would have kept going up. That's why we did what we did. Did it work? You're darn right it worked. We've saved many lives.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 391 points. The S&P off 31. I'm Ann Cates.
Right now, home sweet home has never been sweeter. Our homes are more important than ever, and finding people we trust to take care of them is just as important. For over 20 years, Home Advisor has been connecting homeowners with trusted local plumbers, electricians, roofers, and more. And now we're making it easier than ever for great pros to join the Home Advisor network. For a limited time, home service businesses can get $200 in free advertising. Visit homeadvisor.com/start200 for details. That's homeadvisor.com/start200.
If you're a licensed loan officer who's not making six figures, you're at the wrong company. It's time to move on to American Financing, a family-owned lender that's hiring licensed mortgage consultants. Join their team today and enjoy incredible benefits, plus access to qualified leads. No cold calling required. That's right, they give you the lead so you can concentrate on the customer. Apply online today at AmericanFinancing.net or call 888-804-0303. That's 888-804-0303.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. David Gornoski here. Happy to be with everyone here. Let's run through some of the headlines as we find them on judgereport.com. Always a helpful place to aggregate the news from around the different subjects. From Judge's perspective, what he thinks to be the most interesting. It's always a helpful way to get a snapshot. Here's a shock poll. 82% want monthly stimulus checks. 3 in 4 Americans agree that universal health care is needed during the coronavirus pandemic. So isn't that amazing? It's like you do a lot of scary stuff. You get a lot of people drummed up in fear. And I'm saying that doesn't mean you don't take a virus not seriously. Obviously, no one's saying that. But you don't have to go from, okay, let's take this virus seriously to let's drum people up with fear and hysteria. Because then you get these results like 82% wanting a monthly stimulus check, because apparently, our public school system didn't teach economics. No one learned that if you print money in perpetuity, eventually the money doesn't buy you anything. It's just useless. If you print too much money, increasing the supply of money relative to the amount of goods that it can be used for, what does that do? Causes the prices to rise to meet the larger supply of the money. And that's something that is delayed because of, various factors. But it's something that we see, the rising costs of services in sectors in which the government is most involved in the rigging of the market with regulations and subsidies and handouts. Think about healthcare, how high and costly the price of medicine is in healthcare versus in, say, things like plastic surgery, where there's not a lot of government intervention and prices drop, quality goes up. Versus in healthcare, traditional medicine, it's highly regulated, highly subsidized, highly rigged by government, and therefore prices go through the roof because all that credit that's created in our Federal Reserve system ends up funneling into that sector of the economy. And look at college and higher education. Another area where government got very much involved because they found it to be a bread and circuses game that, hey, look, we can get everybody to have a degree. No questions asked. Just come in. We'll get you all in debt. It'll be great. Make a lot of rich socialist professors filthy rich with nice, lucrative jobs, 6 figures, railing against greed, getting poor people's kids in debt as they rail against greed. Oh, wow. How's that work? And look what happens in the college sector. Prices go up because government funnels credit into that sector. Same thing with housing. Housing is artificially inflated, which what does that do? That makes it harder for people who want to buy a house at a fair price, because those numbers go up, those prices go up, and then the crash eventually comes and everybody says, hey, government, can you save me? And they say, why, yes, of course I can. I don't want to tell you I created it because, after all, That's just the nature of government education in public school and in universities. You don't learn the truth about the people that are educating you. You don't realize how they're systemically going to fail at the things that they say they're going to do for you. Here's another headline. Texas, North Carolina, Arizona see rising cases as they reopen. This is from The Hill. And I find this kind of headlines ridiculous because what happens there? Testing, just because people are increasing testing and it's showing results, that doesn't mean that that's a result of people having reductions in these draconian policies. It means that more people are being tested, which means you're getting a higher sample of how many people out there actually have this virus. Here's another headline where we have Scarborough doubts that president not taking hydroxychloroquine. So he thinks he's not taking it. And people are losing their mind because he said he takes this drug as a prophylactic. It's funny. There's so much sacredness about drugs in our culture in terms of the pharmaceutical business. And there should be some real caution about drugs. So I don't want to be flippant about prescription drugs. Those are some of the most deadliest things you can engage in. But the notion that this country is having a meltdown about Trump taking a drug that has been on the market for decades, it's a generic drug, I think that's the key issue. They never really attack a drug that's on patent. Media is always just nice, conveniently quiet about that. Is that because they get a lot of dollars from those pharmaceutical companies or something? Or, why is it that they're supposed to be all about love, not hate, all about, compassion for the poor? Why don't they ever say anything negative about drugs that are on patent? Those are usually given glowing praise. They're always treated with kid gloves. That's really interesting. If it's patented, makes it, government grants a patent, and then there's obscene profit margins that can be made there. That wouldn't happen in a free market. But then things that are off patent or generic or natural substances, oh my goodness, if you say anything about those things in relation to any kind of illness, oh my goodness, the media, just like clockwork, that free press, they are so free and so spontaneous. They all just end up saying the same thing. How'd that happen? How in the world does that work? But it's a miracle, isn't it? The free press with their free thinking and their freedom of expression and their free dissent and their noble challenge of the establishment always ends up backing obscene profit margin patented drugs and disparaging drugs that are off patent, that don't have big obscene profit margins, that anybody can manufacture. Those things, oh my goodness, they just don't get that good press. It's just a free, spontaneous thing. They just all randomly decide to disparage hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin and all these things. Of course, there has a big elephant in the room that Trump has spoken favorably of these drugs, and these people are so obsessed with this man, the media. They're so obsessed with this person. Their every waking hour is just fixated on this person. They have an unhealthy, stalker-like relationship with the president. So if he says something, he could say, penicillin is something you should use for infections, and they would say, I hate penicillin. Penicillin is evil. Penicillin will destroy you all. Penicillin will destroy your heart. They'll just attack anything. So there's that factor, which is a big factor. But even if it wasn't President Trump, it's clear that so much of the free press so spontaneously always ends up attacking off-patent generic drugs and especially natural substances. That just can't be scientific. That's really convenient, these little geniuses. But that's what you get with a free press. They're just so free, they just freely come to the same opinion. Amazing how that works. So we have headlines like that are going around, and it's interesting because it's always a negative frame that these people take in the headline. That's why I don't really get into the headline news. I get into deeper analysis of the culture and news events. But every now and then we're going to poke our head in and see what they're doing in the rest of the media. Another thing that's interesting is Pat Buchanan has a column out at everywhere called "Will Americans Submit to Second Quarantine?" And that's a thing that I think is something that I think is an issue that is something we should be thinking about, which is by the logic that these folks are trying to gaslight the public, and meaning the people who are stuck on groupthink, that government should have us locked down until there's a cure or a vaccine that will be patented. Isn't that nice? Nothing. I can assure you that the vast majority of the free press will not speak favorably of any data that comes out in a favorable light for off-patent generic drugs or natural stuff. They just will spontaneously never, ever do that. But if it's something that requires government universal health care to afford, like a patented drug, yeah, that's certainly on the menu. Certainly on the menu. Interesting. But, yeah, I mean, Pat Buchanan, just that question alone is an interesting thought, which is, you know, what are you going to do if they're making this case that we have to be locked down and this quarantine by force until there's a solution, there's a vaccine? Well, first of all, there's a lot of political advantage that has if people are locked down. I mean, you're going to cripple the economy if you do this for months on end. If it's not already in a very precarious state, it is. And you're certainly not going to print your money out of this situation. You can't print the money for universal basic income or universal health care. That's not going to work. That will retard our economic progress even worse than anything else. So those things are going to be total failures. But if they keep pushing this narrative that we got to lock everybody down until there's a vaccine, and that doesn't come to light, or maybe they try one and then there's it doesn't pan out, it creates some side effects or something like that, and then they have to go do another one or more trials or more extension or whatever, then yeah, I mean, if this thing comes back in the fall, they're going to try to say we need to lock everybody down again. If they let everybody out and then there's a concert, let's say, right, in a major population area, and then all of a sudden a few months later or a few weeks later, 50 people have coronavirus, they're going to panic and create a media hysteria again. And then what are they going to do? Lock us down? So then, and then if this happens again the next year, what are they going to do? They're going to keep using this this moment to create a political, kind of ritual of locking us down every how many months and for how long? I can't believe that this is something on the menu for America. I don't think you believe it either. I think that we know that this is not a sustainable way for having a cohesive society. This is not a sustainable way for having a first world country. I mean, this is a pathway to a third world status country if we're not able to manufacture things, to be able to get along with and see our neighbors and friends and families and have normal conduct without a state of massed chaos that envelops everything we do. So by all means, wear a mask or do whatever you need to do to be socially distancing in a wise way from those who are vulnerable. But there's no reason to have this one-size-fits-all forced policy and then eliminate epidemiologists and doctors who have great scientific counter-arguments and data-driven analysis that challenges the efficacy of forced lockdown politics for dealing with this novel virus. So let's continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania & Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania and Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
And now, a message from Vistaprint. This is a cow. The cow that made the milk that was made into the cheese that made Tober Dairy Farm into the talk of the craft fair. But cheese only lasts so long. The impression a small business like Tober Dairy Farm makes can last much longer, with the right business card to back it up. And now Vistaprint is introducing free shipping on all business cards in any quantity. That's right, free shipping on any card, any style, any quantity. Plug your information and logo into hundreds of fresh designs tailored to your type of company, or upload your own original layout. Pick from paper stocks like matte, glossy, or uncoated. You can even upgrade to a unique touch like rounded corners. The choice is yours. The time is now. I said now, not cow, Farmer Tober. For a limited time only, get free shipping on all business cards in any quantity at Vistaprint.com with promo code 2828. That's promo code 2828 at Vistaprint.com. Vistaprint. Own the now.
Hey, it's Bubba the Love Sponge. With all the coronavirus stuff going on, you've heard the CDC say wash your hands about a zillion times. You know, studies show that the average person touches their face 23 times an hour. Your nose, eyes, and mouth, that's called the T-zone. And the T-zone is the most important area to keep clean. And for over 12 years, there's this product called TheraWorks Protect. It's been used by millions of emergency room patients and medical clinics to support infection prevention. TheraWorks Protect is easy to use, and it's safe to apply several times a day on your hands and around your nose and eyes and mouth, better known again as the T-zone. Just apply a small amount into your hand and rub it in until it dries, and then apply another amount and rub it all over your T-zone. You know, finding hand sanitizer sometimes can be difficult, and now you can order TheraWorks Protect online. Just get it directly from them. Go to TZoneProtect.com and use the Bubba Kicker. When you use the Bubba /, you're going to get 20% off and free freight, and you're going to have it in a few days. Again, TZoneProtect.com /Bubba. Start protecting yourself and the ones that you love now.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm going to read a passage from a book by Robert Hamilton Kelly. The book is called The Gospel and the Sacred. It's a study of the Gospel of Mark. There's a passage here that I thought was interesting. It's talking about, for whoever is not against us is for us. That's found in Mark chapter 9, verse 40, the quote by Jesus. It says, the circle of the disciples, recently agitated by the struggle for prestige, is silent, but not convinced by the example of the child that he gave. Soon they are excluding again. John the disciple puts this gesture of inclusion in question by objecting to the unlicensed exorcist. That was someone casting out unclean spirits without their permission. You know, he was doing it on his own. He didn't have license. The gospel narrates this here to show the frailty of the new community of Jesus, even at the moments of greatest insight, and thus to undermine its claims to perfection, and so help prevent its own deformation into scapegoating violence. Like the receivers of the word in the parable of the sower, many do not or cannot receive the simple message of the child. Jesus' reply, "He who is not against us is for us," expresses remarkable tolerance. All are to be included unless they take steps to exclude themselves. This is the church rather than the sect ethic, and it is a convincing rejection of sacred exclusionism. And I think that's an interesting lesson that we should think about as we talk about, all of this viciousness, where we want to cast people into jail for practicing, their barbershop, and their license gets revoked because of this disputed theory that the best way to deal with a new virus is to force lockdowns for everybody. Okay, if we're going to be a society that has tolerance, right? I'm talking to those who are most clear to be on saying that they're for tolerance. If we're going to be a society for tolerance, you got to be able to tolerate your neighbor's freedom. And don't get swept up into the contagion of fear that if we allow people to cut hair and use their own social distancing guidelines and safety procedures, that somehow that's not enough, that you got to have everybody locked down in a prison-like atmosphere in their own home for years on end, if that's what it takes to come up with some novel patented drug that the media will like and government bureaucrats will like. That's just not acceptable. If we're going to have a tolerant society, we have to be able to swallow our pride, swallow our desire to want to shame and hurt other people that we think are different from us. From any kind of that, we got to let go of that. That is no place in a civilized and tolerant society, right? And that's what Jesus demonstrates in that passage there. If they're not against us, then they're for us. If someone like Donald Trump, who's advocated for clinical trials for hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, because of some of the experimental data coming out of different clinics that show that combination is correlated to some improvement, there's also pushback. But because he says that, so many people in society are so shrunken in envy, so mutated in their hearts with hate, that they can't stop and say, maybe the person is not against me. And why should I be against him if he's not trying to hurt me and trying to draw attention to clinical trials being done? We don't have to assume a posture of being, man-children, where we say, well, if he says something positive about a drug, but the high priests of Big Pharma have not approved and sanctioned this to be the official drug of the King's Court, well then, oh my goodness, everybody might just start taking it all the time, even though you got to have a prescription to get it anyways. Isn't that supposed to be the state-approved way of having these kind of drugs handed out? You have to go to a licensed medical physician, right? But nevertheless, people want to politicize things like that to the point where they have no place for tolerance. We have to think of this in a different way. We have to be able to look at this from a perspective that puts tolerance in mind and empathy in mind in how we conduct disagreement. So we have to make that choice. We have to make the choice about whether our society can long sustain itself if we don't have tolerance and mutual respect for difference. We cannot afford to allow a state of undifferentiation in which everybody is supposed to be locked down and unemployed and receiving checks printed out of thin air and conditioning us to get rid of the power of human facial, appearances and the power and the integrity of that in our ability to have solidarity with our neighbors. This idea that we can bureaucratize and sterilize all of society through force is a fantasy. It's a fantasy that humans, in their attempts to overcome a virus, can come up with a bureaucratic antidote to the chaos of a novel virus. That is a fantasy. They can't even tell you what makes an immune system work. They can't tell you that because they're so politically compromised by special interests that they have to serve that own and buy, pay for play control of where regulations go to look for things. and the scope of investigative interests within regulation agencies, that they have no credibility to be the monopoly on truth. And we're all learning that. So I don't buy this narrative that everybody's 80% ready to just sit at home and take checks. I can't believe that. I can't believe that the public would be that ignorant and that barbaric that they're ready to just say, you know what, just send me checks. And I want those printed out of thin air, and I have no idea about inflation. I have no idea about what that does to savings. I can't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe there's way more morally grounded people than that have wisdom and they have the maturity to be able to discern from bread and circuses. I don't believe that we're that far removed of our founding spirit. But nevertheless, even the founders, right, for the good things they were trying to achieve, they only had, they say, what, a third of the population was interested in their side? And out of that third, how many people were actually active in articulating the philosophy and the principles of liberty that they were trying to espouse, however right or wrong they were in the details and how that worked out? But they didn't have a vast majority either. So maybe we should be a little bit more encouraged by the thought that it doesn't take a giant majority of folks to change things, that it takes a tireless minority. It takes a remnant of folks who are excited about something and motivated for lasting change that gives us our freedom back. Not change that just continues to slip us further into the old way of doing things, which is the same old, top-down, sacrificial violence. That doesn't work. And the more we try it, the more it will backfire and destroy its own attempts at coercion. So that's what we see right now. Try as much as they want, the groupthink media, the TV party, and the bureaucratic friends that want to have us worship them as their saviors, as the geniuses par excellence. They can delete videos, but every time they delete a video, it creates a wildfire of interest about that dissenting opinion from the epidemiologist on YouTube. And they can delete scientists and medical doctors' videos and content. They can do all they want. But the more they do that, the more it blows up in their attempts. It blows up, it backfires. And it lights a fire, a rekindling of that remnant of those in society who've had enough of the lies, who've had enough of violence, who've had enough of coercion, who've had enough of blame games, and they just want the truth and nothing but. That's what our country should pursue. That's what you and I can pursue right now. So let's get to work at pursuing it. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.